A man was walking in the woods one day when he saw a bear out of the corner of his eye. He stopped, said a silent prayer. God, I know you can do all things. Will you please make this bear a fellow Christian? The bear caught up to the man, placed his paw on the man's shoulder, and said, Brother, will you pray with me? Dear God, for this meal that I am about to receive, make me truly thankful. This is The Christian Bear with Dr. Ben Hilskamp. Welcome to episode 16 of The Christian Bear. I'm your host, Dr. Ben Hilskamp. In this episode, we're going to return to our look of Christian nationalism, particularly some things that have been said or done within the last week to 10 days. Reported on recently by LGBTQ Nation were a number of fairly troubling, though not altogether unheard of, events of Christian nationalism, or simply of conservative politicians, candidates, would-be candidates, saying, frankly, outrageous and nasty things about the queer community. Herrick Christian Kim, who describes himself as a MAGA, American First Republican candidate. Bear in mind that Mr. Kim received exactly 17 votes in his district's primary for the Republican nomination. However, that being said, posted on Twitter a cell phone video of himself recording a possible solution to the COVID-19 pandemic here in the United States. He correctly identified that the pandemic is still killing upwards of 600 people every day in the United States. He also predicted, and this prediction may or may not be true, that this winter and in the coming months, the pandemic would kill another 4,000 to 20,000 Americans. For once, we see a Republican embracing science. However, he then goes on to say that the most logical, the most God-given idea for the way to end COVID-19 is to make homosexuality a capital offense and to put all homosexuals to death. He goes on to say that, quote, many Christians believe that COVID-19 is punishment of God for homosexuality in America. And that's why God killed 1 million plus Americans through COVID, end quote. He goes on to say, and I'm paraphrasing a bit because his language is not proper English, Christians are saying that until homosexuality is illegal in the United States, Americans can expect God to punish America, sending plague after plague, and COVID-19 is just the first of those plagues. In quote/paraphrase. He proceeds then to compare COVID-19 to one of the 10 plagues of Egypt in the book of Exodus, and talk about how the book of Leviticus argues in part that men who lie with men should be put to death for their abomination. Unfortunately, Mr. Kim forgets that, among other things that the book of Leviticus says that people should be put to death for, and that are in fact abominations, are such things as charging interest on loans, a fact that many Republicans, not to mention debt collectors, people who loan money for students to go to college, perhaps should get right with God if that is in fact what God is intending to do. We should bear in mind, of course, that Mr. Kim is a would-be politician, a would-be candidate. Again, having received 17 votes in the primary makes me think that he more than likely was a write-in candidate. We should not condemn Mr. Kim for his small showing in his district's Republican primary. We should not condemn Mr. Kim for having a fairly basic and very expected reading of the Bible. Such a reading that excludes most of the verses before and after, and directly before and directly after the one that he decides to harp on. What we can call him out for is his insinuation Indeed, not just his insinuation, but his outright demand that a group of people be put to death in order to appease a supposedly vindictive God who has sent COVID-19 to punish Americans. Indeed, COVID-19, if it is punishment, punishes people across the world. This rhetoric is no different than what Pat Robinson and others have peddled for years. First, that HIV was the curse on the queer community. Then that cancer or tornadoes or, I don't know, salmonella perhaps, were all condemnations of Americans because of our quote-unquote acceptance of LGBTQIA plus people. In another shocking, though again perhaps not all that unheard of, claim by the religious right, supposedly right-wing religious Christians, and I use religious and Christian there very loosely, are arguing that their fellow Christians are not being harsh enough towards the queer community, claiming that it is a serious threat, that being homosexuality and the identities contained in the queer community are such a threat to America and such a threat to Christianity that Christians are not being anti-gay enough. It's interesting that in a religion named for a person who came in the name of love, that one should argue that one's fellow religion and fellow churchmates are not being anti-gay enough, are not being hateful enough. Jesus literally said that he came for love, that love is the answer. And yet we have Christians are calling on their fellow Christians to be more hateful. Just this past week, a federal judge appointed by former President Trump once again doubled down on the ability of business owners to refuse their services to LGBTQ couples. We've heard this before with bakers saying that their sincerely held religious beliefs would not allow them to make a cake for an LGBTQ couple. Show me where in the Bible, show me where in your faith it says that you cannot make a cake for a queer couple. Show me where it says that that is the way to be a Christian. Show me that verse. Show me that belief. Show me that doctrine. You would be hard-pressed to find such a precedent before the modern era. Baking a cake, assuming that that is your business and you're good at it, violates no religious statute, no religious verse, no religious conviction. And now a federal judge at that, has said that a wedding photographer can also discriminate legally against LGBTQ couples because of this quote-unquote sincerely held religious belief. Show me where in the Bible it says that one may discriminate when taking pictures. Another area that right-wing folks, and particularly right-wing supposed Christians, have recently targeted are women's sports, particularly the ability for trans athletes to compete in historically women's sports or in women's brackets of sports. Conservative Christians, right-wing Christians, MAGA Christians are now doubling down to preclude women, to preclude girls from sports at all. As if Title IX had never actually happened, these same folks are saying that girls cannot compete in sports because it is too rough and tumble, because it's not ladylike, because it's not what a modest Christian woman would do. People pick a side. Either you're trying to exclude trans women from women's sports because you want to quote-unquote protect girls, protect women's sports, or you're simply trying to do away with women's sports. No, women will not compete, women will not wear pants, women will not participate in modern life. That is what these people are saying now. It is no longer just a war on transgender individuals, and particularly trans women. It is a fight against the very nature of women to do more than sit at home, produce children, and cook. This is not the 1950s. This is not the 1750s. This is not the 850s. Women can do everything that men can and often can do it better. Non-binary, transgender people can do everything that men can, and again, can often do it better. In the words of Ruth Bader Ginsburg, Women deserve to be wherever decisions are being made, including in football huddles, including on wrestling mats, including in any sport that we might consider historically female. Girls and women deserve to be there. One last example of recent Christian nationalism. Aaron Thompson, a Christian pastor at Sure Foundation Baptist Church in Washington State, a man who often comes up with the words hate and Christian nationalism before his name or before his position, has launched yet another attack on teachers and on school systems, claiming that teachers in school systems, at least in his own state, are offering direct lessons on sodomy and sodomite behavior among their students. What exactly is a lesson in sodomy, does Mr. Thompson say? Well, he doesn't actually go that far. However, he does say, quote, where literal pedophiles can be allowed to dance in front of children and put money in their waistband like they're at a strip club where they serve alcohol, end quote. Not that that actually happens. He's comparing the performances of drag queens in one context to drag queen story hours for children in another context. Discussing public schools, Mr. Thompson goes on to say, quote, you know what my proper pronouns are? I'm a he, she, it, they, dog, cat, monkey. I got the litter box in the room. I'm a cat. Meow, meow. That's the kind of stuff that's going on in public schools. And they're not even telling the parents about it. I don't understand what's going on. You can't just identify as whatever you want to be and you're magically that. Everybody knows you're not a cat, you idiot. End quote. That's not what's going on in schools. Yet again, a supposedly Christian pastor, a supposedly conservative person, a person who is supposedly wise enough to at least know what a pronoun is missing the point of pronouns. Pronouns. He, she, ze, here, they, them. These are pronouns. Cat, dog, monkey are names of animals. They are not pronouns. This is not the kind of stuff, Mr. Thompson, that is happening in public schools. As a Christian, as a supposedly conservative Christian who follows the Bible, why is it that you are missing one of the 10 commandments in thou shalt not lie? Thou shalt not bear false witness. That's exactly what you're doing here, Mr. Thompson. And you need to stop. This is not what's going on in public schools. Public schools are attempting to be inclusive to their students, are attempting to be sites where students can learn and can grow and can engage in safe ways. Who are you to call out the efforts of worthy and dignified teachers in such a ludicrous and ridiculous way? And friends, I'd be remiss to not bring this back home with an email that I received just today. There's a gentleman by the name of Jeff Winter. Jeff is the head of an anti-gay organization, one of the organizations that calls themselves Christian, that would like all queer people to renounce their evil queer ways, return to Christ, and find themselves as a new creation, as a non-queer person. They in fact believe, and Jeff in fact believes, that queer people don't exist. Every month, he receives the newsletter from the organization of which I'm the executive director. Every month, he sends me some sort of email. Most times, he argues that I don't exist, because queer people don't exist. Today, he sent me the following email. He says, quote, I want to leave behind my homosexual expression. Where can I get help in my city? I'm looking for an ex-gay group. Sincerely, Jeff Winter. End quote. He knows quite well that my organization, and me indeed as well, do not support sexual orientation and change efforts. We don't support them because we don't believe that they're needed to be a Christian. We don't believe that they're needed to be a disciple of Jesus Christ. We also know that sexual orientation change efforts are often rooted in shame. They're often rooted in both spiritual and psychological abuse. And we cannot, in good conscience, as fellow Christians, as fellow queer people, recommend ex-gay groups to our fellow Christians and to our fellow queers. I'll be curious to see his response, if there is a response to my email. Friends, we remain in Crazy Town. We remain in a world in which people who call themselves Christians deny the very fundamental beliefs of Christianity, the very fundamental message of Jesus Christ, in order to advance a chimera of Christianity, a bastardization of Christianity. Something that says that Jesus would take up arms and defend some warped principle of what he actually preached. That Jesus would be here to tell people to leave, to get lost, instead of defending them against the very church that he founded. Remember, friends, these people are not Christian. They do not support the type of Christianity that Jesus himself supported. The type of Christianity that Jesus himself preached. They've gotten it wrong. And as long as they continue to have it wrong, they will do untold amounts of damage to the people around them. This has been The Christian Bear with Dr. Ben Hillscamp.